Okay, right, good. Okay, very good. We didn't quite get through what I wanted to last time, but it's not the first nor the last time that's going to happen. We will see how far we get today. It will be nice if we got to we made some entry point onto feudalism, though I shouldn't get too ambitious. We've got quite a lot to cover in the meantime. But if we don't get to feudalism, you think about feudalism over the weekend, particularly when you watch those the presidential debate. Just think about feudalism. Yeah. And then I'm going to move you on to the Wage, Labour and Capital, a wonderful text written by Marx, which is a summary in about 15 pages of the 3 volumes of Capital. Well, a lot of 3 volumes of Capital. It's meant to be a popular piece, but it has lots of interesting and intriguing arguments. And you will see that it is easier to read than the German ideology, which, as I keep on telling you, is the most difficult text we will read, at least this semester. And you have read it already so many times that you know it off by heart, right, Conrad? Do you know what the opening lines are? You're making fun of those Hegelians. I don't know what the opening lines are. But the opening lines of German, he's in that wonderful paragraph where he makes fun of those philosophers who think that ideas drive history forward. Okay, very good. So anyway, Wage, Labour and Capital. And these are the questions I want you to think about when you read Wage, Labour and Capital. I really hope we all get to it on Tuesday. Okay, are there any questions? You all worn out from midterms? Does anybody have any midterms yet? Next week. Oh, I won't see anybody then, right? I'll come chasing you.
It's take home.
It's take home. Okay. Yes. Okay. I mean, doing theory will inspire you to write your midterms better. And that's right. Very good. Okay. Summary. Well, let's see if I've got 5 points to make, and they get more complicated as we go through them. But I'm still aiming to do this in 10 minutes. Right. First point. Division of labour, according to Marx and Engels, has a Smithian component and an extra component. It has 2 components. A component that I have referred to as the specialization, organization of production, division of production, the who does what, with whom, and how. That's the Smithian, the first component of division of labour. Marx and Engels add a second component to the division of labour, and that concerns with what happens to the product of labour. What happens to the product? Who owns it? Who controls it? How is it distributed? What I call the who gets what from whom and how. Who gets what from whom and how. The first component is sometimes referred to as the forces of production, the Smithian component, the forces of production, our capacity to transform nature and produce things, whereas the second is somewhat misleadingly, but nevertheless definitively referred to as the relations of production, the property relations, the ways in which the surplus is appropriated, one class from another class in the case of class divisions of labour. So, okay, that's my first point. Division of labour has 2 moments, 2 components. That is a most fundamental point that we start from when we think of the difference between Marx and Engels on the one side and Smith on the other. The second point that derives from that is the distinction between class societies and non-class societies. Class societies, there is a group that appropriates surplus from another group. Those are relations of exploitation. They are class relations. The relations of production in this case have a class character. They involve the appropriation of surplus. Those are class societies. There are non-class societies in which there still is surplus. There always has to be some surplus, but it is not controlled and owned by a distinct body, a distinct group, but is actually collectively owned and collectively redistributed. And Marx and Engels think of the earliest societies as primitive communists, in which perhaps a chief represents the collective interest of a tribe and distributes and redistributes surplus accordingly. There are no clear classes. We call primitive communism, though we've already seen Engels sees in tribal societies the emergence of class, but Marx and Engels do see a primitive communism in which there are no classes, and then there is a future communism, which is what we talked about last time, in which, again, there is no classes, no exploitation, and surplus is centrally appropriated and redistributed. Centrally appropriated and redistributed. So what is, and this is my third point, what is this communism? What is this communism? Well, we ask of communism the same questions we ask of all divisions of labour, namely who does what with whom on the one side and who gets what from whom. So the who does what, so perhaps we should, so who does what with whom? Well, what's that? That is indeed the who does what, with whom, and how is, well, it's the abolition of specialization, sometimes referred to as the voluntary division of labour. That is to say, it's really for Marx and Engels, the antithesis of the division of labour, in which people engage in activities according to their multifaceted persona, their multifaceted character, their multifaceted needs and talents. So the abolition of specialization, the voluntary division of labor, and they engage abolition, specialization, and voluntary division of labor, and they develop talents in community with others. They don't do it as isolates, but always in community with others. It is through relations with others that they develop their different talents. This idea, the voluntary division of labor, the end of specialization, this romantic vision of criticizing in the morning, doing sociology in the afternoon, and dancing in the evening, that vision of communism, that vision of the division of labor's abolition, is dependent and can only exist if and only. It exists if and only if what? Well, under who gets what? Gets what from whom? We have central appropriation of surplus and its redistribution, central appropriation of surplus, central appropriation of all products and their distribution according to people's, what do you think? According to people's needs. Very good, very good. According to needs. This involves the collective ownership of the means of production. The abolition of private property. Private property understood as those means of production that produce things. We thought factories or offices will be collectively owned. Okay. And sometimes this who gets what from whom involves, in some people's imagination, not clear in Marxism, some what probably is even in Marxism, some idea of central planning. Planning production and deciding what things will be produced and who will get those things. Planning, and it will be democratic planning. We'll decide collectively, democratic planning. We'll decide collectively what we're going to produce and who's going to get what. These are the two dimensions of communism. Right. So far, so good. That was point number 3. Point number 4. Matthew.
Just to clarify, the appropriation of products, are you talking about everything or just surplus?
Well, I suppose it's a very good question. Definitely the surplus, but basically what's the form concrete it takes? Always some production, some real things. So I imagine that there will be, what would you produce? What would one produce under communism, do you think? Clothes. I think we'll not all go naked. Okay? Don't you? Don't know. It might be a bit cool in places. Coats. Fur coats. Right, depends. Alright. Coats. Alright, clothes. So, the idea would be to decide collectively what clothes we need in this society. We'll decide it democratically. They will be produced by certain collectives, and they'll be centrally appropriated and then redistributed. That essentially will be the planning system. So I think of things, all products in a sense, appropriated centrally. Appropriate's not the right word. Collected centrally and distributed. Yeah. Yeah. I think in the end everything will be redistributed on the basis of some sort of plan. Local or national or global, we don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I'm filling in gaps here, but because of course Marx and Engels, as I've said before, don't say a lot about this. Then we'll say more. But anyway, that was maybe my imagination. Yes, Anders.
So how does central planning fit with voluntary division of labor?
Well, that's page 441.
How can you still choose if it's planned from central?
Well, I think that is a very interesting question to pose of the German ideology. I mean, in German ideology, there is no sense of anybody producing anything. People just dancing around doing whatever they like. That's the German ideology, right? That's your point. But basically, in the German ideology, Marx wants to convey to his readers, or Marx and Engels convey their readers, this imagination, this idea of freedom, a particular idea of freedom in which we develop multiple talents. Very different from the Smithian idea where we specialize. So he wants to convey that idea, but it's totally unrealistic. Totally unrealistic, because under all systems, all societies, we have to produce the means of our existence. Premise number 1 of the German ideology. There's the contradiction. The contradiction is resolved on page 441. Right? Good. Page 441. That is written in the 3rd volume of Capital. It's not clear whether it's Engels or Marx who actually authors this passage. No matter. Page 441. This is my 5th point. Fourth. We have the revised notion of communism. They're getting real, as they say today. Revised communism. What are the 2 aspects, realms, dimensions of this revised communism? Jessica? The realm of freedom and the realm of necessity. Now, very good. The realm of necessity. And Anders, what happens in the realm of necessity?
Probably produce the subsistence.
Probably. Hopefully. Realm of freedom. Yes, definitively. And I'm not going to read to you that paragraph on page 441, we read it last time, but the realm of necessity is indeed the place where we have, what does he call them? He calls them the realm of, do you remember the vocabulary he uses on page 441? Realm of necessity, yes indeed, that's where we produce the means of our existence, but we do so, he has a special term. Something called producers. Associated producers. Now that's the critical question. What on earth does he mean by associated producers? You see, this realm of freedom is what? What's the realm of freedom? The realm of freedom is none other than this wonderful vision here. The abolition of the division of labor. That is where we dance and sing and play the piano and do sociology and criticize and fornicate whenever we want. Okay? Now this is the realm of freedom. This is the abolition of specialization. This is the development of multiple talents. Multiple talents. As we have a will, as he says, as they say in the German ideology. But this is really what's interesting. This is the addition now. We're getting real. We're going to produce the means of our subsistence finally. In the communism, it seems, in the German ideology, we live on air alone. So here is where we produce the means of... So what? How do we produce the means of our subsistence? That's the key question. Do we produce the means of our subsistence in the same way as we do under capitalism? Well, no. There's something special about this word associated. So what could it possibly mean? We don't exactly know. But let's imagine. We've already talked about association, collectivity, collectiveness in the realm of planning. Hold on, yes, associate. So I imagine this realm of necessity will be a realm that is planned, that we will decide collectively what we need, and we will then distribute people in collectives to decide and to make the things that we decide we need. So, associated planning. And this planning will not be organized from above in the sense that we will collectively decide what we want. We'll in a sense vote. We will vote that we want shirts. Do we want Mercedes-Benzes under communism? We will subject that to a vote. It will not be decided by some capitalist corporation who wants to make a profit. But do we need Mercedes-Benzes under communism? No. We don't. What do we need, Katie? Ferraris! Everybody in a Ferrari, that would be great. Why would perhaps that not be very good for communism, Ferraris? They're pretty expensive, yes. There would be a lot of, not safe, right. What else would Ferraris do to us? Yes.
They would take the place of food, perhaps.
Yeah, well, that may be. They would have to make, we have to make some compromise. We have Ferraris and starvation of Ferraris. Yes, that's possible. What else would Ferraris do? I don't know what, I've never actually been in a Ferrari. But I imagine a Ferrari looks something like this. Am I right? And there's just a single individual in there, boom, right? What does that do to us? Stupefied. That's interesting. Stupefied. Well, yeah. Then it will really be dangerous. Yes. Yeah. Yes. No, I mean, it sort of individualizes. We live in a most insane society. A most insane society. How much time do we spend commuting because everybody wants their own bleeding car? Cross the bridge. Now we need another bridge. And another bridge. It's the most insane. Why don't we have what? Buses, trains, public transportation. We know how to build this stuff. Why don't we have public transportation? Because, Chelsea?
Industrial Revolution. We had a great system between here and between the East Bay and San Francisco, but the motor companies bought it out and depleted it so that they could...
The motor companies wanted to sell their cars, so they destroy public transportation. And there are many stories that suggest that was really the case. Yeah. And just now, how long does it take? I don't have a car. How long does it take me to go to Stanford? It takes me half a bloody day if I'm lucky. Just round the corner. Yeah, but that's right. Yes, Neil?
I would argue that we do have great public transportation, but the reason is the idea of people not to all use it. I think between Muni, BART, AC Transit, all that stuff, you can get almost anyone in the area.
Believe me, you can't. And if you want to go to Los Angeles by public transportation, you'll be going for how long?
3 days.
3 days on Amtrak, yes, right. Anyway, look, you can think about communism, that's fine, you get my point. These Ferraris are going to create a lot of individualism. Anyway, we might want Ferraris. We'll decide whether we want Ferraris. That's the point. Planning will be democratic. We will vote what we need. Okay, very good. What other dimension of association do we have it? Well, we will have association distribution. Yeah, that's right. Well, what I imagine, this is me, what I imagine distribution to be like? What I imagine is like public library. You go to public library, pick out a book. No, basically we could think of distribution systems like the public library. You need a car, you go to the public library, get a car out. You need a spanner, you go to the public library, get a spanner. Basically it's open to all. Bicycles, for example, we're in Amsterdam or the Netherlands, and not yet Norway, but in the Netherlands, everybody has access to bicycles. You pick them up, ride them, and put them down again. So that's my imagination of distribution.